Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Hi, Lily.
Right.
Eric's here as well. So seeing that it is 7 p.m., we will call the regular meeting of Fire District 27 to order. And as usual, we will have a public comment period. Just a reminder that each person will have up to 3 minutes, and we ask that you respect the time of others while they are speaking.
Just my comment on the 4th of July, and I had noted after 14 years that it seemed like it was more continuous and certainly several decibels louder this year than usual. So I'm kind of curious if there were anything unusual, any calls for the fire department that might be out of the ordinary.
Nothing unusual, so.
That's good. Is that it? Thank you. Josh Yancey.
Thank you. I'm Josh Yancey. I'm a firefighter here in Fall City. I would like to once again thank the district for the partnership we have in place with Eastside Fire for having their battalion chief here. I just think it's really important that people understand how valuable that resource is to us, for those of us who do this job every day. Having them here, you know, maybe if you're not really too familiar with it, you may just think, oh, it benefits them because they can get out to their other service areas faster. It is much more than that. They make us safer and better at our jobs. And so I want that to be clear and understood how important it is, and I appreciate that we have done this partnership because it's very valuable to us. Secondly, today is July 8th, which I think is significant. So we're 1 week past the day when instead of a night like tonight, we had 2 career firefighters on duty. 1 week ago, had things gone differently, we would be in a different situation. Instead of, these budget meetings have made it pretty clear that we're in a situation now where we're scrimping, saving, prioritizing, which of course means that some things will get bumped down to the bottom, may not happen now, may be done in the future, we don't know. Asking the public for a lot more money, and there's not a person in this room who doesn't know this, but I still want to say it. We could have done all of these things for less money, and I still find that pretty disappointing, but I'm over it. I would also like to encourage administration here to look at ways for us to immediately start filling to 3 career staffing 24 hours a day. I do believe we have the means to do that and procedure to do that. So I would ask that topic continue to be explored as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks. Nora Hightower.
Yes, at your last special budget meeting, I mentioned my experience in developing and managing budgets, and after listening to the various proposals described by the chief, the options that were suggested by citizens, I decided to share with you a template that similar to what I've used in the past that might help you evaluate some of the options for some of the significant line items, especially those proposed to be changed. So the template includes for each option historical actual, future projected costs, pros and cons, and then other considerations. And having that kind of information really allows you to compare the options side by side with equivalent information, which I think has been very valuable for me in the past. So I'll hand them out to you. They're very draft versions just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And the versions I have are on hiring a 12th firefighter with options to hire in 2019 or 2020. Those are some things that were mentioned. To continue with 11 firefighters and to change the shift schedule to cover with overtime. Another one on firefighter training, another one on SCBA equipment, and another one on bunker gear. And when you look at it, you'll see it's just based on information I could glean from the chief's budget handout and from my notes from the meeting and conferring with some of those who made suggestions. And then there's some yellow highlighting where it's like, I think I got this right, but I'm really not sure, so just know it's a guess. It should be verified kind of thing. I didn't try to fill in any of the financial information. I didn't want to take Chief from Linda's time just to give you this idea. This template can also be used for revenue options. Just to be clear, because it was misrepresented in an editorial letter to the editor. I was only suggesting transport fees for those who did not live in our district and are not paying taxes, so I just want to be really clear about that. And then I hope you see value in this type of evaluation. Like I said, I've used it in the past, it was very helpful. And I know it's a lot of work to provide that kind of complete information. So I would encourage you to form a committee. You've got fire staff that's knowledgeable, both the chief, Melinda, firefighters that really should have some input. And then you've got several citizens that have a lot of expertise in budgeting and in fire management. And I've got a handout on that as well. And so the purpose of the committee would to provide you input and recommendations on key capital and operational equipment that's needed, budgetary cost estimates, and timing of purchases. And again, you could also include revenue options in that. So, as I said, I hope you would find that helpful, and I hope you consider these suggestions. So, handout. One for everybody. Maybe not everybody in the audience, but I've got one extra.
Melinda, can I make sure I get a copy of that after the meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here's one for Lily.
Thank you.
Well, I have it in 3 minutes this time.
John Reeves.
Hey everybody, John Reeves, Fall City resident. I'm going to probably make a few editorials on my presentation based on prior comments. First off, on Fall City Days, I'd like to thank Chief Connor and I believe 2 volunteers who at the last minute decided to represent Fire District 27 at Fall City Days. So we appreciate them having the fire truck and representing Fire District 27 Fall City Days. 4th of July. Every 4th of July, I've appreciated the fact that the fire engine is driven around town. It's kind of served as a friendly reminder to have a safe and sane or insane, safe and insane 4th of July. I could be blind, but it seems that I missed that this year. The engagement of children and passing out of fire hats has always been much appreciated. Not sure if that happened this year, and that could go to the fact of being over it. Unfortunately, I've not been able to attend the budget meetings. What surprises me is the extent of the proposed budget items seem to be a bit inflated. Chief Connor, with all due respect, kind of has a track record of running a very tight budget, and what has changed. So we're kind of on to it. Just, we don't need any trickery going on here. I promise to continue pushing for a 12th firefighter. I will make an editorial here because to this date, I have not heard one firefighter say we need 3 full-time firefighter staffing. So thanks, Mr. Yancey, for saying that's important. The citizens and the firefighters both agree there. Soon you will hear a call report tonight. And again, you will once again hear Fall City has provided much more mutual aid than it receives. What's being done to correct this imbalance? Can we bring them in to help us get some of the training we need? I mean, it's 4-to-1 at minimum on any given month. Last month, I asked for a staffing report. I heard again about only having 2 people again tonight. Where's the 2018 staffing report? How bad is this staffing? We don't know. So I think staffing report would be an important thing to add to this agenda. 3 months ago, after one of these meetings, I filed a formal complaint with Fire District 27 regarding the behavior of one of their employees, a firefighter, inside this very room. 3 months later, this issue is yet to be resolved. I would hope our firefighters could conduct themselves in a professional manner, especially inside this station house. Will it be necessary for me to push for firefighter examination, psychological examination testing? Do we need to re-up those? Which also makes me consider where are we at with our CPAT testing. I have questions about some of the physical conditioning. Granted, I couldn't do the job. Look at me. But that's no different than professional football or anything else. You've got to be able to physically perform the job. So there's an opportunity to move forward here and build a strong and independent Fire District 27. I call on the commissioners, the chief, and the firefighters to make that happen.
Thank you. Anyone else who didn't get their name on the list? Dave Hart?
I've been listening to the comments, and I see we're on the agenda for hiring the additional firefighter. I think we need to move forward on that, but it's gonna take 2 to 3 months, like the chief said, to get somebody on, and you're talking the first of the year. So, thinking about this a little bit, after our last couple meetings, we need to put the 2 daytime people on, 24/7, and backload that with a firefighter to make 3-man staffing, with the 3rd one with overtime. And that way you'll have your 3-man staffing 24/7, just until you get the new firefighter hired. That's the only way you could do it between now and the first of the year. Unless the chief's got a different idea how to do it. But I think it's time to put the 2 daytime people on full-time, 24/7, and we just kind of eat that. As much as I hate to eat the overtime, we bring one person back in overtime until we get the 12th guy on. I don't know any other way of doing it. I really don't. Maybe the chief, like I said, has got a better handle on this and has got a better idea.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Robert?
Yes, I'd like to just say something in support of what Nora has presented, the Budget Committee proposal. I think it's a great idea because it would include citizens, it would include firefighters, it would include the chief, and even put a commissioner on that staff, or on that evaluation committee. It'll allow us to prioritize, what's needed here at the fire department, come up with realistic budget numbers, timeframes, and so forth, and be able to deliver back to the commissioners a completed template that is a consensus of agreement among all parties involved. I think the other benefit of this is when it comes time to ask for that levy lift and or an M&O increase, you'll have the full support of the community behind that. And I think that's really important, that the people in the community know that these numbers came up through consensus of all parties involved. And I think that would make it pass easily. So I am very much in support of that, and I'd like to ask the commissioners to take a serious look at that.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no more hands, we will move on with our meeting. I did have one comment to make regarding a couple of items that were mentioned, I believe, in our last meeting regarding special meeting agendas. It was suggested by a couple of citizens that the district was acting improperly by having new business or other categories on the agenda for the meeting. And that we were potentially in violation of RCWs related to the Open Public Meeting Act. As the chief stated during that meeting, the board is free to discuss any item. They just are not allowed to take final action on an item that is not on the agenda. So if anyone is interested, I have a copy here of RCW 24.30.080, special meetings. Item number 3, final disposition shall not be taken on other matters that are not on the agenda. So just wanted to clear that up. We can call it a special meeting. We can put anything we want on the agenda. We did not take final disposition of any items that were not on the agenda. I don't believe we took final disposition of any item on that particular meeting. So if there are any questions about that, again, the chief is well versed in the rules of how the meetings work. So moving on to approval of the minutes. We have our minutes from June 10th regular meeting and June 24th special meeting. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, anything that you noted, Lily?
I do not have any comments.
Okay, I'll move to approve minutes of the June 10 and June 24, 2019 meetings.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. moving on to our vouchers and payments for the month. Chief, anything unusual you'd like to discuss further?
I think the only thing that the Washington paid family and medical leave, that actually represents 2 quarters. They weren't ready to take our reporting earlier, so that 2 quarters worth is what you see, the $1,700.
So the total's the same year to date, just timing on that.
Correct.
Anything else? You have questions on?
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Any questions, Lily?
No, I do not have any questions.
Okay, I'll move to approve our general expense fund vouchers and transactions for the month.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 On to our financial reports. Yeah, anything in particular, Chris?
I don't have anything.
Any questions?
Yeah, no, I'm
Comments?
fine.
No. Anything, Lily?
No, I do not have any questions.
Okay. Looks like we don't have any user agreements. We have the annual Encompass birthday party request
Yes.
been made.
Yeah, it has been made, and just wanted to put it in front of you guys if you'd like to do that again. The one from last year, they are scheduled to do it in August 10th, I believe. So next month.
Okay. Any comments on that, Chief?
None.
Okay.
I need to make, I don't think I have the other one on my calendar yet, though, so.
Well, any objections to continuing to support Encompass?
No, I
Lily?
I think it's a good company to support.
Okay. Anything else you need on that?
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, on the Chief's report.
So we had in the month of June 67 calls, which is an exact copy of what we had the month prior. We're running a little bit ahead, 578 to 538 this year versus last. And then for the calendar year, even a little more divergent, so 410 alarms this year compared to 342 in 2018. So we provided mutual aid on 4 alarms, canceled 0, or we received mutual aid, and then provided it on 29 alarms, of which we were canceled 16 times. So the minute 30 turnout time standard was achieved on 36 of 62 calls, which is 58.1%. And the 90th percentile was 2 minutes and 2 seconds. So that's where we are. And then Melinda has provided some charts for us, of which I have not had time to review. But I did look at, obviously, the monthly amount, so there's nothing on there that's surprising to me at all, so. Again, on the turnout time, the averages continue to be pretty good. Just the 90th percentile is kind of a tough road to hoe, I guess. So One of the 4 2018 recruits still needs to take the NREMT written test. And then 3 of the new recruits for this year will be assigned to shifts really soon, which is exactly what we reported last month. But I expect that we'll see that happen sooner than later. And then 2 of the 3, and actually there were a total of 4 of them, so, but 2 of the 3 will be taking the EMT class later this year, so they have a pre-test coming up, which will be at the end of August. And then the class will begin in September and then run until about Christmas time. The NORCOM Governing Board meeting is scheduled for this Friday, and I plan on attending at 9 o'clock. We are continuing to schedule and complete shared staffing orientation training for 2019. And we're doing well with Snoqualmie, not as well with Duval, but we're trying to make some impact there, so we are making some progress. So.
Chief, on the shared staffing, so it's a two-way street on that, I see we've got some overtime that we paid, $6,800 so far this year.
And again, now the shared staffing that you're talking about, we have a revenue item and an expense item, which are designed to cancel each other out. And I'm not sure exactly what your question was.
Well, I guess the question is the two-way street thing is we're using firefighters from the other 2 departments.
We do. How many times has that occurred this year? Not a ton, but I think that it has on a couple of occasions happened.
Okay. And then we're obviously sending.
Filling some
fire
shifts
departments.
both in Snoqualmie and then Duval.
Both.
And then we're beyond 7-1 right now, so if they don't have their orientation complete for 2019, then they won't be working shifts until it is completed.
Okay. So do you have any idea how many are or aren't, haven't completed the?
I have a worksheet, but I don't, I haven't reviewed it to tell you what the percentages are, or exactly where we are with that, so.
All right, so the system's being used though, it looks like.
Yeah, it's in place if we need it, so.
Okay.
And the shared staffing and mobilization, both the revenue and the expense line items, those also include mobilizations for other agencies. Is that correct? If we send somebody to a wildfire elsewhere in the state or into another state, it would be reflected in those same
Melinda,
lines.
can you help me out here with?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, so it's a mixture.
So that's where we post that
But
all
on
the
this,
time then?
there's a line item for each.
Yeah, I have it broken out on that.
Yeah, it's broken out. This is.
In more detail.
Linda emailed this out earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just referring to
About a
the
couple weeks
overall
ago,
budget.
yeah.
Yeah, so the MOB and the shared staffing do go on the same line item in our budget.
So that breaks it up. And then
Yeah.
the revenue, I'm guessing, often lags months.
Yeah, with the MOB it can, and that's why even we got revenue in 2019 for last year's
Right, so
MOB.
it's January figure.
The out-of-state one went longer than typically we would see. The one to California seemed like a very long time.
So that's 68.75 in overtime this year. That was only on shared staffing, and the MOB is 21.35.28. So it's a couple weeks old.
As of last month. And then on the shared staffing MOB for May was the one that was the large amount that we got. It was like 11,000. And there's some shared staffing in there.
That's on that receipt. Okay, yeah, I see.
Did you get your questions
I
answered
did,
then?
yeah.
Okay. There were a couple of things that are just in the other miscellaneous thing there that I just wanted to shed a little bit of light on. On 7-1, we did cut over to using ESO for fire, and we're trying to get in the groove on that, so we're obviously not there yet, but we will be. And so anyways, the Zoll backup, we're gonna be putting away a backup copy of that. And so today I actually completed an export, and I'll confirm that in the morning with, when I get an email back from the state. And then we will have Norcom make us help make that migration work. Then the last step of that will be replacing all the workstations. So I think that our count of workstations will finalize that, but typically we have a couple of laptops and then 6 workstations that we'll be talking about. So, anyways, the other stuff you can read about, and that's the end of the chief's report.
All right, any other questions for those items? Good, Lily?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. On to unfinished business, initial projections.
We haven't done any further work other than prepare the worksheet for us to, to load in there. I think that we explained how it will work, but we need to actually start putting some stuff in there and see what the effects are. moving
Right, I
forward.
think, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later too, we need, probably another special meeting or two in the near future to work on those items.
And I guess I have, we have a request for a special meeting tonight, and I have 3 different items to talk to you about, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and while we're on the financial projections, I'd like to, and I know that we've just gotten this budget committee proposal, but community members, that's going to help us move forward and get down the road and continue to be a successful fire department. So I would ask the other 2 commissioners to think about this, and maybe at the next special meeting, or at the latest, our next regular meeting, we'll have further discussion on that after everybody's had a chance.
Yeah,
the
assuming
vote.
we can come to some
Yeah.
level of consensus on what's required and not, what's not required. And,
Well, I think
think-
I think we're probably having consensus as to what's required, and not required. That won't be a problem. We know we need SCBA's. We
Sure.
know we need.
Yeah, the last meeting, we got to the point of saying, maybe we don't need backup equipment, maybe we don't need certain things. And to me, that's, we're going down
Yeah, I
a very
didn't-
different path
I
when we
didn't,
get to that point.
I don't think I
So-
commented to that.
No, I'm just saying, those are some of the suggestions of, we have one piece of equipment.
Well,
and
ultimately,
rely on-
ultimately, it's our job to make those decisions.
Yes,
So.
yes, so I'm just saying, that's
So,
some of the
We take the comments and
suggestions.
comments and suggestions, we listen to them, but we ultimately
Right.
do what we need to do.
Well, I would suggest, again, Chief just mentioned, he's got a number of items that we need to work on. Let's figure out where we can best discuss that item in an upcoming meeting. Yeah, definitely by the next regular meeting, if not before.
Right.
Because it sounds like we may need even more than one, special meeting in the next month.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's go on, at this point, to draft procurement policy. This has been hanging around for a while. Do you have a recommendation, Chief? I think the last item that's left here to a large extent is just the, under the purchasing authority, which option we want to insert in here.
Correct.
So I would offer that I think option 2 would be appropriate for us, giving the chief the authority to make expenditures within the budgetary line items, which we have previously adopted, rather than item 1, which is just saying within the general budget. We have been very focused, and we continue to be very focused on individual line items for specific purposes. So I like option 2, and then we just need to figure out what the correct level is to put in there. I would suggest probably an amount at least of 10,000.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't know if Lily has comments, but.
I'm fine with that as well, the 10,000 and the option to stay within the budget.
Within the budget line item.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then, there aren't any options presented, but there are levels of emergency purchase at 20,000,
It needs to
It's not
be
updated.
updated, and we can bring back what the statutory requirements
Oh, okay.
are,
This was not updated.
but they will increase a bit.
So in, the materials, equipment, and supplies. We'll have different limits.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just bring this back again the next,
Yeah, sounds good.
Do we?
with the update.
I think you gave me enough information, though, that I can bring it back to you and
Yeah,
something
use
that you
option 2.
can consider signing. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you would, send it out again before the meeting with the statutory changes. Then we can review those at the time.
Okay.
Granted, if they're statutory. but not a lot.
And those changes just took effect July 1st.
Right,
So.
okay. I was thinking this had been updated. All right, the King County interlocal agreement for fire protection services.
And with this new agreement, they actually would pay, and we have a schedule that's attached to the contract. And it lists the county-owned properties that have, where there are improvements, and then they would pay the levy rate based on the improvements. Now, if they own vacant land, they aren't paying anything. So it's only on the improvements where we would see that. And the amount does include the bond as well, so the GO bond. So what they're offering to pay for this year is $1.63, I think is what it is. Is that what it says, Melinda? $1.63 and some change?
Yep. That's correct.
So anyways, I would recommend that we sign this. It's some funding that we have not been getting from the county, and it's taken over a year to get to this point, so.
And SNR was representing other agencies as well.
That's correct.
On this, and to your knowledge, they have also been signing.
I believe that his recommendation to everyone was that you sign it. There is in the agreement that we have two folks that have a fire benefit charge. If they choose to, they can do one or the other. So they'll pay either the levy rate or they'll pay the fire benefit charge, but they won't pay both. And that's right in the last paragraph of the contract there. And then did you make a copy of the schedule for them as well so they can see?
Yeah, they have a
Okay.
Well, I would move to approve the interlocal agreement with King County for fire protection services of county properties.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can I ask how much extra revenue that is?
about $9,500.
Okay.
And this would begin for 2020?
This year.
This year.
It is actually this year.
Yeah, they would
Second
pay
half.
this year.
Sounds like they're gonna pay the
Pay the
full
whole-
amount.
Okay.
I know the amount did go down from the first.
Because it's taken so long, that was one of the points of contention, was that we're gonna let them off the hook.
All right, we've got the addendum to ambulance service agreement with American Medical Response Ambulance Service, Inc., dated for April 1, 2019.
So a little background on this, years ago, there's been a couple of iterations there, but we did an RFP, and AMR responded back to that. We've had an ambulance agreement in place with them for about a dozen years or so. At one point, it was a little bit more lucrative in that they were making a charitable contribution of about $30,000 a year. And then based on our percentage of the other folks that were in the consortium, they were making an annual contribution, and we did that to the Fall City Food Pantry. And that is being eliminated. They also, there was at one point a pretty lucrative penalty schedule, and that's been diluted over several iterations there. Almost all of the good things, they also were providing some money for someone to actually manage the contract. And so they were paying for the lion's share of a data analyst, and that has come to an end as well. So some of the more lucrative things have happened. The one thing that still remains is that there's a cap on the amount that AMR could charge our customers. And this year, the increase was capped at about 3.5%.